Hello, it's Dawn Michelle from Boho Tarot, and today we're going to check out some of my favorite Oracle decks for summer 2020 edition. So I thought we'd start things off with my newest Oracle and turning out to be one of my favorite summer oracles, and this is the Whispers of the Ocean. I love the ocean energy in this deck. I love the sea creatures. Look how beautiful. That's one of my favorite cards in the deck. It's a gorgeous card stock, gorgeous production value on this deck. The colors are absolutely beautiful, but I love tapping into this watery, summery, feels like you've traveled to a tropical island retreat and you've sunk beneath the ocean to just commune with the ocean animals. That to me is what this deck is, and it is just everything that I love about summer all rolled up into one. Summer's actually not my favorite season. I'm more of a fall gal, but I do really love the beachy energy vibe that I get in summer. And I think that's because we do tend to try and make it to the coast during the summer. And living in the Pacific Northwest, while you can go to the coast during the winters and the springs and the fall, it's not going to be very warm. Our beaches here aren't super warm, so which is different because I grew up in California where the beaches are warm. But I love that card too. I think that's what this deck does for me. It kind of taps into my love of everything of the ocean. It reminds me of growing up on the beach in California. It reminds me of the summer vacations that my family takes now to the Oregon coast. And it just, feels like retreating to a tropical island and communing with the animals of the ocean, which I just absolutely love. So it's a gorgeous deck. I'm really enjoying working with it, and it has a definite summer vibe to me. So that is the Whispers of the Ocean Oracle cards. Another one of my favorite animal-inspired oracles is the Animalkin Oracle. And this to me has a very summery feel as well, and I think that is due mostly to the fantastic colors in this deck. I love the animals. I love the depiction. I love the borders, and I never say that. These cards are very colorful. They're very vivacious, and I think that they really tap into that wonderful summer energy of really getting in there and just getting things done. And I really like that about this deck. It's kind of no nonsense in the way that it approaches the animal energies. It definitely taps into that fun summer energy, but I think that there's a lot of substance in these cards as well. And I really enjoy the artwork. I love all the bright, bold colors. I love the patterns. That really makes this deck quite wonderful to work with and to read with. I love pulling cards from it. And again, it's a beautiful Hay House matte cardstock, which is always a pleasure to work with. So definitely one of my favorite animal oracles. It's just colorful and fun and bright, and I really enjoy working with it. And how about those backs? They are just stunning. So that is the Animalkin Oracle. So keeping with our animal theme that we have going on here, this is the Messenger Oracle. And this is a fairly new oracle in my collection, and I have not actually done any real work with this deck yet. I got it because Renee at Meadowlark Mystic was showing pictures of it on her channel. I've been able to actually hold the deck and see it in person as well. But again, it has that very wonderful, vivid artwork that's just full of life and full of color and full of expression. And I am probably going to trim it down because I've seen Renee has her deck trimmed down and it just looks absolutely beautiful when you take all of this off. Granted, that does mean that you cut the titles off. Generally, I do like to work with a deck before I take titles off, so I do hope to work with this one this summer before I actually make any modifications to it. But I've seen it trimmed completely borderless, and it's just absolutely stunning. This artwork is just amazing. Again, full of that high energy summer vibe that's just, I think, really, really essential during this time of the year. Kind of keep you going through those really long days. Just beautiful. So that is the Messenger Oracle. So moving along to one of my favorite oracles to work with, or really two oracles to work with, this is the Cosmic Reading cards and the Blue Messiah Reading cards merged together into one deck. Now I have also trimmed the outer border off of this deck, or both of these two decks. You can see have two different backgrounds here. But I just adore this deck. It definitely has that kind of cosmic family type of a vibe to it that I really like. I find the messages are just really wonderful in this deck. I get so much out of this artwork. It's so beautiful. But again, it just feels kind of like a summer night. And I guess I have a lot of decks, both tarot and oracle, that to me kind of feel like a hot summer night. That's kind of how I describe them. They have a lot of energy. There's a lot of vitality to them. They usually have these bright, bold colors that I really adore. And I think it's just wonderful artwork to tap into that kind of summertime energy. And I think the artwork is just beautiful. And it's one of my favorite oracles to work with. I just get wonderful readings with it. It goes so well with so many of my summery type decks. Just a gorgeous deck, or two decks really, because as I said, this is two different decks. I've also edged it. But this is two different decks merged into one, that is the Cosmic Reading cards and the Blue Messiah Reading cards. So shifting gears into that kind of fun summery energy, we have the Synchronicity cards. And this is a deck that has a lot of really fun artwork. Again, it's that bright, bold colors. I think it is still in order because I do want to do some walkthroughs of some decks. And I really like the artwork. We have a lot of archetypes in this deck, which is wonderful. A lot of wonderful keywords. There's just something very cozy about this deck, like sitting on the front porch sipping, iced tea on a warm summer day. I don't know. I have weird associations for decks, I guess, but it's very bright. It's very colorful. It's a deck that is a lot of fun, but it has some depth to it too as well, which I really enjoy. And I just love the colors in it. So you can tell it's a collage deck, but so beautiful. So that is the Synchronicity Oracle. So moving along, I also have the sister deck. I don't know if you noticed, but I love these two bags because they're inverses of each other. So these are my Synchronicity cards. And this one is the story cards. And again, I really like the artwork of this. It's very similar, of course, by the same artist. It's kind of the sister deck to the Synchronicity Oracle. But this one is called the story cards. And this one is wonderful for kind of exploring the idea of story in a reading, or to add a story-like layer to a reading. So I love to pull this one just to pull a couple of cards or two to kind of expand upon, or to add a deeper story level to a reading, and it works really beautiful for that. And I love the artwork. Again, just really quite beautiful, very stunning color palette. Again, it feels a little bit kind of homey like the Synchronicity cards, but definitely taps into that kind of summer, relaxed summer day. This is like summer vacation deck when you dive into your storybooks and you're just immersing yourself in another world. That's to me what this deck really is about, and it's just beautiful. Lovely backs. Wish there wasn't text on it, but that's again just personal preference. So that is the story cards. So the next oracle deck in my summer collection is the Universe Has Your Back. And this is a deck that honestly I go on and off with. Sometimes I really, really enjoy it, and sometimes the messages get a little bit repetitive. However, I think this deck has really great artwork. I really, really like the artwork. The language on the cards I do have some struggles with, mostly because I think that they are overwritten. Here's a really great example. I am a spirit having a human experience. Perfect. Stop right there. That would have been great. But then it says, and I'm here to get closer to love. And that tends to be a thing that happens a lot on the cards. It's like these really great punchy little sentiments and affirmations, and then there's like verbal diarrhea that comes after it. This one is very clear, very punchy. My vibe speaks louder than my words. I love that. I think that's great. The artwork is beautiful. So some of them you see have very succinct, very on point messages. And then some of them are just like, they're a little much for an oracle card. And I think it's that constant tie back into the idea of love. And I get that. I have read some of Gabrielle Bernstein's books. I won't say I'm a huge fan, but I've definitely read some of them. And really what it draws me into this deck is the artwork. And I think that some of the phrases would have been a lot better had they been a little bit more succinct. Like this one, I recognize that I've chosen fear and I choose again. To me, that's super powerful. But then when you add I choose love, really narrows in what this card could be about. And that's, I guess, the thing that I have an issue with this deck. And again, that's just really nitpicky things. And it is very in line with her particular work. So if you like that kind of language and you know, the I am love, you are love, we are all love, all of that, if that kind of language really connects for you, then this might be a really wonderful deck. For me, I have some issues with the language. I actually have thought about trying to modify this deck to change those instances where the language just really doesn't resonate for me. Because there's not a ton of cards in this deck that do that, but there's enough that it really does kind of jarring. It really is kind of jarring when they come up, but the artwork in this deck is amazing. That's what I love. I love the artwork. It has a very kind of fun explosion of color type of energy to it. But then we also have these cards like this one where it's kind of like it tones it down a little bit. So it's kind of like going through the cycles of a summer day, right? Where you have kind of that growing, that emerging of energy, and then the explosion of energy, and then kind of that closing back down again. And I think that that's really beautiful about this deck. And again, it's really the artwork that I love about this deck. The language on the cards, not so much, but I really do enjoy working with it in that sense. It makes a wonderful affirmation deck, and a really wonderful deck to pull at the end of a reading if you just need kind of a wrap-up affirmative message, because it is very much an affirmation deck. So that is The Universe Has Your Back. So for the last two oracle decks, these are both new ones to my collection and ones that I have not worked with much yet. This is the She Who Watches Oracle, and this is another Ellen Lorenzi Prince deck. I purchased this deck directly from the creator, and it has her artwork in it, which is really wonderful. There's something about this very primitive artwork that really speaks to me. I think it kind of slows things down. I think this one is kind of similar to the Minoan Tarot in that it's more of a like early summer type of deck for me. It's like you're really just getting into doing the deep work. And I love the images. I'm really excited to actually work with this deck more in depth. I love this moon card. This card, that was the reason I bought this deck. I mean, I'd have bought it anyway because it's an Ellen Lorenzi Prince deck, and I love her decks. I'm only missing one of them, Tarot of the Crone. If anybody has one up for sale or trade, let me know. I think I did hear it's coming out in a mass market, but at any rate, I just love her artwork. I love her decks. They're so thoughtful. There's so much depth to them. I really enjoy them. So I'm really excited to work with this one as well. And that is the She Who Watches Oracle. And the last deck in my Summer Oracle collection is the Goddess Inspiration Oracle. And this is, of course, by the creator of the Goddess Tarot. Now, this deck is has been originally published. I do not remember who the original publisher was, but it has been re-released on Make Playing Cards, I do believe. Should have checked. Will be a link in the description box below. It was re-released by the creator through a print on demand. playing card site, and I just really love the overall aesthetic of this deck. It again feels like a summer night. I love that it has goddesses in it, and it has a lot of goddesses in it, which is really wonderful. But it's fairly new to my collection. I haven't really had a time to really work with it, but I have looked through it many times. And I really like even the little quotes on the bottom. There is no book, of course. Or at least I didn't see a book when I ordered it, so there's really no way that I know of to get some additional information on it. I do mean to look into that to see if there is a separate book or a download or something that I could get for some additional information. But I think this would be a really great deck also to kind of learn more about, or to start on a discovery of or deepen your connection to the divine feminine, because it is all goddesses. And I think pulling a card and tapping into the message and then using that as a springboard to find out more, I think would be really wonderful. And that was a little bit my intention for working with this deck, as well as just using it as a standard oracle. I do have the Goddess Tarot, which, come to think of it, probably should have been in my summer tarot collection, but it's in my pile of decks to be modified, so there might be 1 or 2 decks missing out of these collections. But anyway, yeah, I love the artwork. I do wish the goddess images were a little bit bigger, but even though it's a very text heavy deck, I think it's the combination of the navy and the gold, or this dark blue and gold, that it just kind of works for me. And I think it looks really rich and beautiful. And that's not usually something I would say with a deck that has really small images and a lot of background. But I think it kind of worked. Another wonderful deck in my collection, so new that it doesn't have a bag yet, so I need to make a bag for it. And that is the Goddess Inspiration Oracle. So that is a look at my Summer Oracle Deck Collection 2020 edition. Thank you for joining me today. You will find links for the decks featured here in the description box below. I hope you enjoyed this video and will join me again soon for more creative tarot for an inspired life.